Okay, we are back for part 2 of making our thunder cake. So remember how we talked about how we had to separate the eggs and beat the whites. It says beat them until they're stiff. So you remember how liquidy they were. This is what happens when you beat them until they're stiff. So this took probably at least, I would say, maybe 3 minutes with my mixer. So if you're doing it by hand, it'll probably take longer, but it makes almost, this is sort of called like a meringue, and it beats them until they're nice and fluffy. That's what you want. So now in our recipe, it calls for creaming together one at a time. So that means one at a time with these ingredients, you start to mix them up. And again, I know that with mine, it's going to be a little bit easier because I do have this nice mixer. So again, if you're doing it by hand, you would just do it the same way. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cream the shortening. Cream is just another word for it. It just means beat it up. So again, it's going to get loud because of the mixer, but here we go. One of the things you also want to make sure that you do is you want to make sure that you scrape down the bowl as you go along. So usually a rubber spatula, something like this, is something that works well. So you kind of just scrape down the sides of the bowl. So now that the shortening is beaten up pretty well, now we add the next ingredient, and the next ingredient that we have is the sugar. So I'm just going to take my sugar here. I'm going to dump it in. Now we're going to turn on the mixer again and we're going to beat that up. I'm going to add in my vanilla now. A little bit more. This is very hard to do one-handed. Just get a little bit more out of here. That should be about 1 teaspoon. I'm going to mix that up. Okay, the next thing we're going to add in our egg yolks. Just the yolks, because remember, we've already beaten up the whites already. I need to scrape the rest of this out. And now we're going to beat that up. Going to add in cold water. And I'm also going to add in the tomatoes. You want to start your mixer on slow, because if you start it too fast, it'll all splash all over the place. So start it slow at first if you're using a mixer. I'm gonna scrape down the sides here. All right, the next thing in the recipe where it says sift together, that was something I probably should have showed you, but when you sift something together, and usually in some type of baking recipe, they do want you to sift some dry ingredients together. So all I did was I took this strainer like this, see how fine that is, and I put the flour and cocoa in there and just shook it over the bowl. That sifts it all together, just makes it a little more smooth. It gives you a better consistency. And then the other thing I'm just gonna add into my dry ingredients is my baking soda and my salt. I'm just gonna pour it in the top. And then we're gonna slowly mix in the dry ingredients to the wet ingredients. And I'm gonna need both hands. So I'm gonna do it off camera and then I'll meet you back for the next video.